know quite a lot. We've had lots of discussions about this, and I'm sure it will trouble you too. Transgender children's charity Mermaids have come under fire because an investigation by The Telegraph found that the charity had given out chest flattening devices to young girls against their wishes.
And indeed, medical experts have highlighted the dangers of chest binding, saying they can cause problems including for breastfeeding difficulties and also broken ribs. So this is a very serious thing for any child to be given.
Yeah, so the chest binders, we were just showing some images there on the TV, but for those listening to us, chest binder, if you don't know what chest binders are, if a young girl has started puberty and she decides she now identifies as a boy and wants to transition to a boy, some charities, this one allegedly, can give them chest binders, or they can get it online as well, where they essentially wrap this sort of tape or this band around their chest so as to flatten their chest so that they can appear to be a boy, so that they can essentially flatten their breasts if they're trying to transition. The problem is here, it's without their parents' consent. But this charity says it's aiming to support transgender children and their families, but campaigners have called for regulators to step in and launch an investigation into safeguarding.
Yeah, I mean, this question of safeguarding keeps coming up. It does seem that we've been throwing it out of the window in recent years because of gender ideology. Well, joining us now is Kellie Jay Keen, founder of Standing for Women, a campaign group which specifically focuses on the rights of women and making sure that the definition of women is clearly defined. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme, Kellie Jay. I mean, what do you make of this? I just mentioned the fact that safeguarding issues seem to no longer be a priority when it comes to charities, particularly when it comes to working with children. And is this not just yet another example that something that, could actually have long-term harmful effects for the development of young girls is being ignored?
Well, when it comes to Mermaids, their CEO is Susie Green, and I think it's a stretch to expect any safeguarding from a woman who took her son to Thailand to have him castrated at the age of 16. So they have been propagating this nonsense that a child can be born in the wrong body for a really long time. They're in our schools. They have a lot of power, and it's about time that was really clearly looked at, and all that power was absolutely, without hesitation, taken away from them.
When I first read about this story, it made me think of foot binding or feet binding, which was a practice which used to take place in China, where they would bind little girls' feet really tightly so to make them really small, and it was a status symbol essentially. It was seen as sort of, if you have really tiny feet, you're more feminine, and it just made me think we consider that barbaric now, or we would. Yet the same people who might consider that barbaric, there are people who might say, actually, no, this is binding girls' breasts, this is completely different, and we're just being inclusive. How do they square that circle?
I don't know, because I suspect they'd be the same about female genital mutilation or breast ironing. But obviously that happens to far less progressive people. So we can certainly look down upon those people while celebrating the progressiveness of causing abscesses, cracked ribs, breathing difficulties. I mean, I know in schools there are people trained in schools to basically give girls a little bit of allowances in PE because they know they can't breathe. I mean, how on earth is anyone upholding this really dangerous practice? And why aren't we thinking, what has happened to our society in which breasts are seen as such a fundamental measure of whether or not you're sexualized? It's a whole big issue that I think we need to be talking about. What are we doing to young women? What about the porn that's streaming into our teenagers' phones? What is it that we're doing that means that breasts, so men that want to be women, they focus on breasts. Women that want to be seen as not women focus on breasts. I think we really have to go back to the drawing board when it comes to what is being a woman in 2022, and it cannot be just on the basis of our mammary glands. It has to be that we're full humans, and then we can embrace the bodies in which we're born, as opposed to try and carve them up and spit them out for some sort of notion of misogyny and lip service to something that we refuse to even name.
also, Kellie Jay Keen, I mean, do you think that the government is now listening to this? I mean, we have had, for example, Kemi Badenoch, when she was running, talking about the trans issue, and Liz Truss did make some words about the definition of women in the run-up to her campaign. But do you really feel like this government is one that's going to take these issues seriously?
I think that would be measured in whether or not we remove this immediately from schools, and whether we have a really good campaign on safeguarding for our children when it comes to being online. We know that there are some really quite horrible men who go through all the social media sites that are occupied by young people in order to gaslight them, groom them into this particular cult. So until we see an absolute end to this stuff being peddled in schools, I don't think we can take this government very seriously.
Yeah, well, look, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. It's always a pleasure to have you on, Kellie Jay Keen there. She's founder of Standing for Women, and now Mermaids obviously not here to defend themselves, but they have released a statement on their website in response to this Telegraph article. They say Mermaids takes a harm reduction position with the understanding that providing a young person with a binder and comprehensive safety guidelines from an experienced member of staff is preferable to the likely alternative of unsafe practices and or continued gender dysphoria. The risk is considered by Mermaid staff within the context of our safeguarding framework. So,
well, that is their statement. But I do worry that it does veer on the side of emotional blackmail. That if we don't follow this particular path, that the alternative is these kids are going to experience this, that and the other, and I don't think that's a very balanced and level-headed way of approaching these issues. But
yes, well, I'm sure you at home have some words to say about this. Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. But we're going to finish off the hour with some of the headlines that you